The results have shocked many, and many more are asking questions about the kind of foundation given to students of Ghana's or who are at the basic schools, as in Ghanaian students, with over 220,000 out of the 400,000 plus of them failing at this year's WAEC. And so is it really a case of poor foundation, or perhaps what the GES is saying, that the results really reflect the true competence of the student is really what the case is? Hello, good evening, and welcome to Agenda. My name is Beatrice Adu, and tonight we want to go into the shocking WAEC result and what this means for the country, what needs to be done, and how to even go about what needs to be done to ensure that there is a real change moving forward. I do have on the panel with me Professor Bafo Ajimendua. He's a governance expert. Good evening, Prof. Thank you so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I have in the studio as well with me Mr. Ralph Gapson. He is a Secretary, National PTA Council. Good evening to you as well. Thank you for joining us once again on Agenda.
It's a pleasure having an opportunity to stand on behalf of Ghanaian parents to speak to you.
Of course, I'm joined via video call also by Mr. John Kapi, Deputy Director, Public Affairs, WAEC. Good evening to you, sir. Thank you as well for joining us via video call.
Good evening, and thanks for having me.
And of course, last but not the least, Professor Jonathan Fletcher, educationist and former Dean, University of Ghana. Prof, it's great to have you as well. Good evening to you, sir.
Yeah, good evening, and thanks for having me.
Remember that we're streaming live on 3FM 92.7. Send us your comments and we'll read them back to you. I want to start with you, Professor Fletcher. If you can tell us really your general reaction to the results that were released.
Oh, thank you very much. And I would like to take this opportunity to say hi to your cherished viewers and listeners. Yeah, I mean, shocking, I should say. Because if you're comparing the results with what we had last year, definitely this is not something that's what expected. So my initial reaction was that the results are shocking. However, there's always the first reaction. And then, of course, you look at the results again, and it tells me that it's early days yet, because in cases like this, we need to look at the results, analyze, and and then find exactly what went wrong. But my initial reaction was that yes, it was shocking. The results were shocking.
Were shocking, you say, and then you continue to say that early days yet. Yet the Ghana Education Service says, and just asking you one more question before I come to the rest of the panel, the GES says that the results we've seen are true reflection of the competence of the candidate, and even goes on to say that it's as a result of ensuring that nobody was allowed to cheat. So the GES already has an idea.
I mean, that's a fair comment. To begin with, I mean, if the result weren't the true reflection of the performance of the student, then the results will not be valid. So even before GES actually came in, I mean, WAEC has given us results, and we believe strongly that the results are valid. Now, if the results are valid, then it means that they reflect the student's true performance. So GES is actually, in a way, saying exactly the same thing as WAEC are saying, because WAEC are saying that the results are valid and they reflect the student performance. And I think GES has just echoed that. So, and that is, and they can't see anything else, because if you say anything else, then it means that WAEC hasn't done a good job.
Prof, where do you stand on this? Because there are so many interpretations coming out now.
Yes, and I think this particular results deserves many interpretations, because actually we don't know exactly where to place our fingers. You can pass the blame around, but the fact is that there is something fundamentally wrong with how we prepare young people. Over the years, you notice that governments have attempted in many ways to influence the educational process. But you see, education is for professionals. Education is not a political football. So I'm always worried when governments come in and they announce big policies and policy shifts. And you cannot have a steady education for young people when every now and then there's a shift in the focus, in the curriculum, in the approaches, and all kinds of things. Of course, there are so many things. People can talk about teachers, PTA people and all, but the fact is that we have to begin seriously about how we institutionalize a professional education system for our kids.
You think we've played politics with our system?
Well, to
With
some
the
extent,
frequent policy
yes,
changes?
because, you know, every new minister who comes attempts to introduce something new. If you look at the curriculum of these schools and whoever wrote the curriculum, as well as the accompanying textbooks, I've seen some, and I get shocked that this is what we're teaching our kids, not to mention the quality of the instructors. So I think it's a mix, it's a complex thing, but I think we have to gradually come to a point where we will divorce the education of our young people from active politics, partisan politics, I should say.
Mr. Gapson, you issued a statement earlier. I think that statement was actually issued yesterday, where I'll just read just a little bit of what you say. It said the National Council of Parent-Teacher Associations, Ghana, is deeply concerned but not surprised about the devastating WASI results, which reveal a catastrophic decline in key subject areas. You talked about mathematics plummeting by nearly 20%, integrated science sliding backward, social studies, which for me is the biggest shock, also having a free fall. If you can tell us why you use these words to express your own reaction to the results. And I'll come to you very quickly, Mr. Kapi.
Thank you very much. I just think that we've watched the space. We are consumers of educational knowledge. As parents, it's our students or our wards that go to school. And as I speak, everybody in this room is a parent, and I'm speaking for all of us. The reality on the ground is that inadequate preparation leads to poor performance. And you know that famous statement, I don't know whether it was by Chinua Achebe. He said that sickness is like rain, which does not fall on one roof alone. So the issue that has come, if you look at the reaction, if you look at the pain and the agony that parents are going through, if you look at the numbers that are not making up to the next grade of our educational system immediately, it clearly tells you that there's an elephant in the room that we all need to sit down, look straight, mirror, eyeball to eyeball, and speak to the issues as it is.
Who is that elephant?
That elephant is a systemic failure that over the period has been able to galvanize momentum, and the exit is what we are seeing. For instance, if you look at what we said, we ended up by saying that as parents, we wish to emphasize that it is not the students who have failed, but the system that is failing them. What system are we talking about? Prof started something, but he was very careful because he's an elder statesman. And I understand why he's very careful. But we are young, so we will speak to the issues. Then Prof will probably come and nail it for us. The truth of the matter is that when you take basic education, those of us who profess various faiths, we know that, as the Bible tells us, that if the foundation is destroyed, what can the righteous do? This architecture, TV3, whatever technology you are using to produce us, is based on a solid foundation. If the engine room, there are problems, it will affect the production. And for that matter, as we sit in this studio, students go to classrooms, they bring a curriculum, and before they roll out of the curriculum, the tools or the resources that must accompany the curriculum in terms of building the capacity of teachers are really not available. The textbooks that are supposed to come with teacher guides are not readily available. Meanwhile, we've done a lot of politics in the space. We've polluted the minds of parents and created an impression that we as politicians, we can be more Catholic than the Pope. And for that matter, we create the impression that in the public school system, you don't need to invest anything in your child's education. Government has decided to shoulder everything. And when you go into the public school system, you will see that a lot of things are lacking. And you will see that a class that should take a number of maybe 40 students per teacher is taking about 70, 80 per teacher. If you go into that same space, you will see that resource allocation to put the necessary oxygen into the system so that teaching and learning can be very effective is lacking. And when you go into the system, these students, they are coming from different backgrounds. and every child is a product of his environment.
If you could be wrapping up for me, then I'll go to
the
Mr.
students
Kapi.
who are coming from various backgrounds, their learning abilities also differ. So what remedial strategies are we making sure that when they are going to write the exams, we can prepare all of them adequately so that when they write the exams, at least you can get a greater percentage, about 80-90% of them sailing through to the next stage. And we have a policy. When you say today they are telling us that it's not wholesale promotion. You need to justify it. If a child is not able to make a mark, and you say that the child should not be repeated, the child should be moved to the next level because government cannot allocate another money to take care of that child at that level. Indirectly, you are telling the teachers in the system that, look, garbage in, garbage out. And when students get to know that, look, whatever they do, they will allow them to go to the next stage. What sets in is what we call academic inertia. And you see, I like that great statement made by this great philosopher.
I want you to wrap up for me,
Henry
please.
Longfellow. He made a statement that the height that great men reached and kept were not attained by sudden flight, but they, while their compatriots slept, kept toiling upwards in the night.
Mr. Kapi, I'm
What
coming.
it simple means is that excellence is not achieved on the altar of mediocrity. Excellence is achieved by you putting in effort and hard work. Today, the students that we have, we've managed to brainwash them to the point that they even think any grade they get, they can pass. And the teachers who don't care so much about making sure that they can push much in terms of teacher quality. So if WASI, this WAEC officer that will be talking, last year, he came out publicly and made a very damning statement, which was true. But as a country, because our conscience was more political, we didn't look at it.
Okay, well,
Let me phrase that statement so that he comes in. He might allude to it. He made a statement that it has gotten to the point that examinations, when they are being conducted, that atmosphere, people carry projectors and put in exam questions, prepare answer scripts, and then the students copy it hook, line, and sinker.
Mr. Kapi, I mean, I'm sure you've heard what Prof said, as well as what Mr. Gapson is saying. The understanding is that you agree with that statement coming from the GES, that indeed the results are a true reflection of their competence. But really, we're also talking about the quality of teachers or instructors, like Prof talked about, and the myriad of other challenges that Mr. Gapson just enumerated. Where do you stand on these?
Well, thank you, and good evening to the rest of the panelists. I would say that from the point of view of an examining body, we have looked at the questions, we have tested some of them, especially the objective test, and we found them suitable for the candidates to write. Now, on our part, ours is simply to conduct the examination, have the scripts marked, and then we use our technical methods to grade the candidates. And so whatever is the outcome there is simply what the candidates have presented to us by way of responses to the questions that we set out there. So on our part, we would say that, well, we've done our work, and what we've brought out is exactly what the candidates deserve.
It's exactly what the candidates deserve. Okay, but you didn't deal with the other issues that have come up. Like I just said, the issues Mr. Gapson raised, and also the quality of instructors that Prof raised. To what extent do you think these have contributed to the competence that you think the students have shown in the exams that just passed?
You know, when it comes to teaching and learning, even though I've been a teacher before, I taught for about 5 years, I think. What I can say is that, well, considering the sheer numbers, obviously, our student-teacher ratio has been blown out of proportion now, so that the effectiveness of teaching may not be achieved. However, as a council, we would not wade into those issues that much. But what we can say is that when you look at the scripts of the candidates and you look at whatever they put on the scripts, you can tell where their focus is right now. That they are no longer paying too much attention to academic work, but there are other things that are attracting their attention.
Like
and
what?
For us, that is what we've observed. For example, when I read the resume, the general resume from the chief examiner for English language, he mentioned two things that I think are really, really very, in fact, three of them. First of all, spelling is a problem for our candidates these days. Then they also talked about the fact that the candidates are unable to use standard language or standard expressions as against the use of pidgin. And then they also indicated that they are unable to find synonyms to the lexical items in the test. So that tells you that the language use is limited as far as our examination candidates are concerned.
So how then did they pass English? Because they performed quite well in English this time around. If they can't construct words and they are using pidgin, they shouldn't be passing English.
When you look at the statistics that we bring out there, you also will have to look at the quality of the grades that we have. You know, for example, you talk about 69% between grades A1 and C6. So if you want to do a further breakdown, how many of them are in the A1 category? How many are in the B2, B3, C4, C5, and C6? It's a wide range, okay? So yes, they may have gotten the C6. Where is the weighting? Is it in the A1 area or in the C6 area? So that even though we have 69% pass rate between A1 and C6, there could still be a further interrogation as to whether the quality of the grades shift towards one side or the other.
Mr. Kapi, just one last question before I come back to you, Professor Fletcher, and I'll come back to you, Professor Bafo-Djimandua. This morning, we had a parent expressing, actually a caller, expressing concern that the grading system is also contributing to this, where at first, if a student had about 80, it was an automatic 1 or an A. But now it looks like it's almost 100 or 100% before you get an A. And also the fact that we have a Ghana-only WASI, which I understand will be changed into the overall WASI West African thing next year. Can you kind of confirm that for us in terms of the grading system and why we've chosen a Ghana-only WASI?
First of all, it's important for us to put certain issues in perspective. The fact that Ghana writes later than the other member countries does not make the examination a local one. I say this because, first of all, in terms of moderating of the items, it is still done using the international standards. When it comes to, drawing of marking schemes, it is done in collaboration with our international experts from the member countries of WAEC. But when it comes to the grade awards, we still do so with the member countries. Besides that, we have a system where you would have, let's say, an officer in Ghana here who is compiling, let's say, mathematics for Sierra Leone or Liberia, and vice versa. So that it is not so much a question of us having a field day and setting questions the way we want them, assessing our candidates and giving them the grades that we want. The examination still had its international coloring. Now, when it comes to the grading, I think that, I don't know where the fellow who spoke got the information from, but that is absolutely false. Because when it comes to, for example, for the BEC, we use a state 9 system where the entire number of candidates is considered one cohort. You grade them from the top to the bottom. So you have the low achievers, you have the high achievers. But when it comes to the WAS, where we use a criterion reference grading system, we use a 3-year comparative study so that even if, for example, this year, 60% will give you, let's say, C6. Next year, it could give you a B2 or a B3, depending on the general performance of the candidates. So there's no truth in the fact that now WAEC expects that you score 100% before you are awarded a grade A. It is not true.
Professor Fletcher, what have you got to add as regards why we're experiencing this problem?
Thanks very much. And I want to also say something in support of what my WAEC colleague has said. It's interesting that people who don't know how examinations are conducted sometimes make certain assumptions. And I think for me, the fact that WAEC exams are valid is something that is saving us as a country, because if WAEC people or if WAEC as a body doesn't get it right, then we're in trouble. Luckily, from my experience and also from the research that I've done over the years, I really believe in the validity of WAEC results, which is why I'm saying that the results that they have given us reflect the performance of the learners. I don't think WAEC has changed anything or WAEC has, altered anything. I've heard people say that this year the questions were slightly different in the sense that the examination, the questions were asking for application of knowledge. And if that is true, then I'll say kudos to WAEC. That's how it should be. Examination is not, getting people to memorize facts and reproduce them. No. And education is not about passing examinations. No. Education is about developing a holistic individual citizen who will contribute, meaningfully to our development. And they can do that in many ways. Examination is only one of them. And in schools, before students actually take examinations, they would have gone through the process of their teachers working with them and giving them assessment, formative assessment, and so on and so forth. So a lot of things happen before the examination is taken. The examination, after all, is taken at the end of 3 years. Now, if the students are doing a program, a 3-year program, and the final examination is taken at the end of the 3rd year, then of course, a lot of work has been done by teachers. And the question that we need to ask ourselves is that if it is true that the examination results reflect the student's performance, then I agree with Prof. what was saying, there's something that's gone wrong, terribly wrong. Now we need to find out what exactly has gone terribly wrong to actually correct that, rather than looking at the examination system and then blaming the examination system. So I think yes, something gone terribly wrong, and we need to find a way of making sure that we actually pinpoint the problem. A number of factors can be considered. In the first place, I personally do not believe that education should be the sole responsibility of any government. I do not believe that at all, because if I believe that, I'll probably not be talking to you. I think education is an all-hands-on-deck affair, and it's not just the government. And I think if parents are relying on government to actually, foot the education bill and make sure that the awards or children actually become successful, then that's not going to happen. I think all of us must come together. Parents, learners, government, teachers, everyone must play their part in order for us to get it right. At the moment, I agree. There's something terribly wrong. We haven't got it right, but we need to. I think there's no point, pointing, accusing fingers at anybody. I think as a nation, we have to sit down and decide and say that, look, this is the way we want to go. This is how we want to train our citizens or Ghanaians to become good citizens. And then when we have decided that through the curriculum, then we look at how we are going to deliver the curriculum. Of course, the curriculum is always, something that can guide us, but the implementation is the key. We will ask ourselves, have we got the resources to help us to deliver the curriculum? If the answer is no, then of course examination results will be bad. So these are some of the questions that we should ask, and not only the exam.
And
also to find out, apart from the exams, what are the students getting? I mean, what are they taking to life? That's the most important thing. And for me, truly, examination is important in this country, in a country where we have few resources, and therefore we need the examination to allocate scarce resources. But for me, if you ask me, examination isn't something that should determine the level of education people have got. Examination is good, fine. There's no question about that, because But then we have to look at other things. We have to find out how the students have been, trained throughout the period from year 1, year 2, year 3. I think it looks like at the moment we're only thinking about the examination results. So, for example, if the examination results were clear, then there will be no analysis, or there will be no challenges or anything. I think we need to go beyond the examination results, because of course last year.
Okay, I'll have to come back to you, Prof. I'm sorry. I'll have to come back to you. I need to come back to you very briefly. But let me get your thoughts, Professor Bafo-Adjumedre. Earlier, you were talking about playing politics with education, such that every minister seems to want to bring something new. But you also talked about the quality of instructors. We had Mr. Kapit there saying that it looks like even the students themselves, the academic staff is not important to them. They are distracted by so many things. I mean, what do you think about that?
Those 2 points you mentioned that I had mentioned earlier are simply a few of them. That's why I say it's a very complex issue. And I like Professor Fletcher's point. about the purpose of education. But unfortunately, that is not the focus of this discussion. We are looking at examinations and the failures and who is to blame and all. But that's what we want to deal with today. But that's a small aspect of education. The critical point Professor Fletcher raised, for me, is more important. Education is simply determining at some point in the educational process how you perform in terms of what you have supposedly learned over the years, 1 or 2 or 3 years, as it may be determined. And that, I think, brings us back to what structures we have in place, what facilities should be made available for the teaching and learning process to proceed and produce better results. And this may have nothing at all to do with the quality of the individuals that we are preparing, which for me is the biggest thing here. Because we are not just producing people with certificates. Well, these days, as we all know, certificates and degrees have become wholesale, and people think that's what leads you to somewhere, you know. But the seriousness of education is how you prepare your young people to become responsible citizens as they grow. But that is where perhaps we may have to get into the curriculum and all. So coming back to the original focus, which is the failure of how we conduct our exams and all, I think first, the teaching and learning process must be reviewed. Secondly, the content of what we teach our kids, that we test them on, must be relevant. And that's why I'm going back to Fletcher's point. The purpose of education, why are we doing that? Because if you know the purpose, then you should be able to determine what curriculum to develop and what should be the content of the curriculum. These are critical issues we have to look at. Of course, we are sad our children have failed and all. We want all of them to pass. That's why I guess one government decided A or C or D, pass them. So you see, and that's the political interference I was referring to earlier. I don't want to go back to the good old days of people like us who really from nowhere you could go to school and become somebody. Today is not like that, you see. So if times have changed, we must find effective way of adapting to the realities and making sure that what we teach our kids, upon which we examine them, will be relevant.
We must find effective ways of dealing with the problem. When we come back, Mr. Gabson would give us a bit more of how he thinks we can deal with the problem. Stay with us. And it's still here on Agenda on TV3. My name is Beatrice Adu. Tonight, we're looking at the catastrophic performance of senior high school students at the just ended WAEC and why over 200,000 of them failed out of the over 400,000 candidates that sat for the exams. Of course, I do have on the panel with me Professor Bafo Agyemang-Duah, who is a governance expert. I have a video call with us, Mr. John Kapi with WAEC, as well as Professor Jonathan Fletcher, an educationist. Of course, I have in the studio as well with me Mr. Ralph Gapson, who is secretary to the...
Kofi Raphael.
Secretary National PTA Council. Mr. Gapson, you had some points to make before we went on that break.
Yes, I agree entirely that as a country, we are supposed to see education as stakeholder collaboration.
Yes.
It's not supposed to be a one-man show.
Yes.
But we've allowed ourselves as a country for some time now to be like it's government who sets the pace for others to follow. If you look at our national PTA constitution, we say that development in education, together we build. Development in education, together we build. And we know that in account balance, they say that one head does not go into council.
That's right.
And also, we keep on saying that usum body and usum kodu. It means that in everything that we do, we must have a backup plan to be able to make sure that if there's a contingency situation, what measures are we putting in place as a special purpose vehicle to be able to curb those kind of situations that we overlooked on? But you also agree that these results are not just a wake-up call. They are distress signals to government and all stakeholders in education to reflect, review, revive, and come out with urgent, sustainable, and progressive national rescue mission plan to be able to make sure that where we find ourselves today, tomorrow will not repeat this kind of thing.
The beginning of the year, we had the government saying, having that forum or consultative meeting on education. Yes. What happened to that?
Well, the blueprint, we are still yet to see it. We're all part of the National Education Forum. A lot of bubbling ideas came. We as PTAs, we told government in plain language that, look, you alone cannot manage education. Enough of the pretense. Tell us the envelope for education, how much you are investing in basic education, because that is where the crux of the matter is. If you get the basics right, the rest of the building blocks, you can sustain it. So the education, the envelope that goes into education, the concentration now is at the secondary level at the expense of the basic level. We don't want to see that. There should be a policy shift. We told government in plain language. And we went further to say that, look, tell us, fees are for you. Dues and levies are for associations. You have no business trying to regulate the space called PTAs. We are not under you. We don't work under you. In fact, we are supposed to police you.
That's right.
In fact, we have employed you as a government. We said this in plain language. Because what the previous administration decided to regulate PTAs and decided to take out the teachers from it. And I said, but find a form. But find we are there for man or better. The same way are for parents and teachers. We are bedfellows. So if you take away the teachers from the PTA front, they play an administrative role to support us. They give us information, they give us policy feedback. There are things they can say, but when we get to the school and we see the situation and we press them, they will tell us. So if you are using them to suppress information, that will not still deny us from getting the information, because our children who are in the school, when they feel the heat, they will tell us. So restore that one. And don't only restore it, but take your hands off PTA operation. But we can have a collaboration with government to look at how best the PTA funds can be used in the public interest. But we are still waiting. But when you go into these issues that we are discussing, one, we have seen that everything that happens for a reason. And for that matter, we've professed some 6-point solutions to it.
Before you go to the solutions.
Yes.
Before you go to the
because
solutions.
That was where you took us to.
Yes.
That what can we do to change the paradigm
before you
shift?
go to the solutions, very quickly, mathematics. The country has not really been doing so well with STEM, but maths, the fact that it's gone down again. As a parent, getting concerns from other parents as well, you're with the association. What do you think contributed to this year's far worse performance than we've seen in previous years?
There's a gospel truth that we are all running away from it. Previous years, when students are going to write exams, we know the kwakwa that happens. PTA funds are being channeled as a special purpose vehicle to paint pictures that schools are performing. All in the name of making sure that teachers help the students to pass exams. And where the interest is more of the core subject areas. And attention that is given to mathematics, English, integrated science is higher as compared to the other elective subject areas. And we also know that this year, when they started the BEC and they started tightening the knots, and we're not allowing teachers at the basic level to go and sit under trees or to go and find a way to answer questions and then find a way and push papers to students. When they started from the BEC level, it sent a signal to the secondary schools that, look, if you joke and they get you to, you'll be in trouble. So we are happy that at least they are tightening supervision and making sure that the system is not compromised. Look, so truth must be told. Who are those who recruit the teachers to invigilate? It's the heads of the schools. Any school is a center. The headmaster of that school, the district director of education, the examination officer. WAEC see these things to them with some policy guidelines, but they recruit and they decide. Prof will be a teacher who will not allow the system to be compromised. So, Prof, we can't use you. So they will pick people they can use to do. These are the realities on the ground.
And you have evidence.
There is no evidence. I'm a practitioner. I know what is going on. What are you talking about? 22 years in the space. What are we discussing? These are naked truths that is out there. And as a PTA person, the whole country, I traverse this country. If you tell the kind of signals and the feedbacks I get, if as a city, I can read some of the feedback for you. They are telling us that because these things were not done this time as it used to be. So it means that all the results that we getting was pentinamento. It was not genuine results. But we are not saying that what is going on, we are all happy about it. What we are also telling government is that, you see, if you don't also try to fix the system well, by making sure that you make sure resources are properly allocated, and you try to set performance benchmarks for heads, and create the impression that if your school is not performing, it means that you are a lazy head. Your teachers are not performing. Meanwhile, you've tied their hands to their back and put them in the boxing ring and say they should go and box. They will beat them center, left, and right. If you want people to perform, resource them. So the resources that government you have, tell us what you can provide. What you cannot provide, let's we the parents also see how we can mobilize our funds. All students see how we can mobilize. Philanthropists and other people see how we can mobilize funds to support.
Mr. Kapsin, let me come back to you quickly.
So,
but yes, I'll come back to you very briefly. Then you talk about the solutions that you're proposing.
Because we have some 6-point solutions, and to address these concerns.
Yes, I will let you address them. But I realized Mr. Kapi was laughing actually when you.
Well, Kapi will laugh because he knows what I'm discussing. He just doesn't want to go into some of the things, but all these things he's aware.
Yeah, pentinamento. That's you were reacting to that. If you could briefly just really share your thoughts with us, in addition to perhaps some information you know that we don't know that Mr. Kapsin has shared with us, and then we'll go purely into the solutions and wrap up, please.
I think he's made a very genuine point over there in terms of the level of invigilation and supervision. We ourselves are aware of the fact that there are some teachers who will never be used for invigilation because of their strict nature. We have reports where the candidates have even attacked heads of school who have attempted to apply the rules to the letter. We have situations where teachers have opted out of invigilation because they cannot stand the instructions coming from their heads of school. So if he talks about the fact that there are no people who are actually being put there and who are committed to doing the job of invigilation and ensuring that the rules are followed, that is correct. Unfortunately, what happens is that when we withhold results, there's a lot of hue and cry. Why have you withheld the results? These are young people, you are affecting their psyche and what have you. But again, I don't think that we expect that WAEC will sit down and watch these things happen and pretend that nothing is happening. Then we are not worth our being called an examining body. So it's possible that a few people would have slipped through in terms of cheating, but then largely once we lay hands on you, we ensure that the right thing is done. So, and I think I read something on social media today where one headmistress was lamenting about a BEC candidate who has come to a school and is unable to write her name. And she confessed that there's someone written for her by her teacher. Well, I mean, something of this nature, how do you address it? So there's a bigger problem out there that we need to address. And I think that the PTAs are doing a good job trying to set the record straight.
Thank you very much. Let me just read this comment before I come to you. Good evening, Beatrice. Everyone is talking about the massive failure of the students, but no one is talking about how well teachers should be paid. The government must also think about paying teachers well for better results. Some teachers are doing Okada and other forms of business to survive because the salary is nothing to write home about. Pay teachers well and you will see a lot of improvement. Teachers are really suffering. Okay, so please, your solution.
I'm a teacher. My motivation is not only in salary.
That's from Ayuba Amidu.
I'm telling him that he doesn't know the profession he belongs to. I am a teacher, 22 years, and I still enjoy teaching. Everybody who knows me knows that I've been teaching for the past 22 years. And I've stayed in rural communities in Ghana and I'm still teaching. The truth of the matter is that it's not only salary that is a motivation. If you are able to provide accommodation facilities, it will take away what I'll use the salary to go and provide this thing. If we make living conditions a bit more conducive for all of us, we can be able, whatever we get, we can make use of it. If we provide teaching aids, you make sure the school environment is so conducive for children, and I enjoy what I'm doing, I'll be okay with it. It's not, you see, this kind of mindset is too materialistic. So anybody who gives him money, he will shortchange the system for money. And these are the things we should be talking about.
Yeah.
You see, we've spoken about 6 points here, and let me go to the points.
Yes.
First, I said we should improve teacher quality and quantity through targeted retraining, especially in low-performing schools, based on assessment of WAEC results in BEC and WASI over the past 5 years. You see, the BEC performance, depending on the performance of the child, if he doesn't perform well, they will take him to the category C, D, and E schools. And sometimes the teachers who are there even work harder.
I'll be glad if you can say those points, and then I'll go to Professor Flesher.
2, we should mobilize parents and communities through the PTAs as partners in creating conducive teaching and learning environment for learning and accountable assessment outcomes in order to adequately prepare our wards for examination. Not as a conduit for using PTA platforms to mobilize funds to engage in examination malpractices. That's 2. 3, we are saying that we should diagnose learning gaps early with nationwide baseline assessment and take remedial measures together with the parents through the PTAs to restore instructional time lost to disruptions, as well as make sure that students take their learning and assessment serious, as well as give their academic life their best shots, as stated by Henry Longfellow, the quotes that are quoted. And that point I'm making is that, look, those days when we're schooling, even to get TV to watch, you have to go and peep through somebody's window. And
because
those days, no, it's not that we didn't have. Even whether you didn't, you had, it was not a priority. And when your parents see you watching TV, the way they will come after you to tell around this time you are watching TV at the expense of learning.
Yeah.
Today, what do we see? Look, whatever technology the children have access today, and they are making good use of it at the expense of learning. When they grow, they will meet better technology than what they came to meet. So what we are saying is that what Longfellow said, that the high that great men reached and kept were not attained by sudden flight. But they, while their competitors left, kept all up. So the students must commit themselves to learning. They should know that their duty is to learn. And when they prepare their minds that they will learn, those who prepare their minds that they will learn, when the apology didn't come, they sail through. You understand? The 4th point, we are saying that we should reduce overcrowded classrooms, invest in labs, textbooks, and teaching aids to improve teaching and learning outcomes in schools, especially the less endowed schools. What I have observed as a country, and that is our biggest challenge, maybe if today I become very influential by virtue of these platforms and I get opportunity, I take the opportunity to my alma mater. Even if they have the resource, I still want to go and do something there. Meanwhile, there are less endowed schools across the country that need those resources, that need those oxygen to survive. And we are killing them and resourcing the more endowed schools.
If you could...
so we are saying that all those issues should be looked at. 5, we should strengthen supervision and accountability mechanism to support students' learning with remediation programs and digital learning tools, as well as ensure that most teachers remain at post and facilitate teaching and learning in classrooms, as well as take the urgent steps to enforce zero tolerance for absenteeism for both teachers and students. That one is another big issue. You see, when students go and register BEC, as soon as they register, they say, hooray. They don't want to attend classes. And who are you to try to discipline them? Sometimes the community is not even prepared to support you. The same way with teachers. So if you are talking about 0 tolerance for teacher absenteeism, we should also make it for learner absenteeism. When we put all this thing into the envelope, together with other points that we said, look, the fifth one, we should integrate technology meaningfully into teaching and embark on curriculum reforms that emphasize mastery over memorization. The students that we have today, they've had their mindset that, oh, somebody will prepare something for them. Or they have their mindset,
we are really running
these
out
are the
of
realities
time,
on the ground.
Okay.
So when we deal with these realities, I'm sure with other equal importance, we'll be able to scale through.
Professor Fletcher, what are your ideas on how we can deal with this problem so we don't see this again?
No, great. He's made a very, very good submission. I'm glad that he's a teacher, and I'm not surprised he's a teacher. He's made excellent. The submission is very good. Because, and to begin with, the students themselves are the ones that we need to look at very, very, and because obviously they are the ones going to write the exam, but not only that, they are the ones actually learning, and they are the ones that should learn to become useful citizens. And I think the attitude is very important. I mean, if students have this perception that they are going to be helped, during the exam, and therefore they are not going to work, and obviously that is terrible. And so we should start with the student. And he's right, because once upon a time, students, were very serious with their learning. It's not the case this time, because there are so many distractions, and that is not helping the students well. So to begin with, the student might be very serious about learning. They must understand why they are learning. That's very important. And they must know that no one is going to do the learning for them. Their parents can support them, teachers facilitate, but they are the ones who are actually responsible for their own learning. And so we have to encourage them to do what we call self-directed learning. I mean, it's not always that the teacher will be in the class, and students must develop this idea that if the teacher is not there, they should be able to learn. Now, let me chip this one in about mathematics, and this is why I'm very serious about that subject, and my heart is bleeding because only 23% have said. What I've noticed over the years is that for some reason, people have this perception that mathematics is a difficult subject. Now, that perception must be killed. If we don't kill that perception, then that won't help, especially when it comes to maths, because what that happens is that they say it's very difficult, so they won't invest time in it. They don't invest time in it because they think it's difficult, and if they invest time in it, it won't be profitable. So they invest time in another subject. Then, because they have not invested time in it, the performance becomes worse. And then they say, well, we said it was difficult. Now you see the performance is not good, so we're not going to. So
and if you could wrap up for me, Prof. Yes. Please wrap up for me.
Yeah, so the most important, yes, very good. So the most important thing is the students have to be very serious about learning. And of course, I say again, that is a collaborative effort. Education is not just one person's responsibility, one organization's responsibility. So we must all come together. Teachers must do something. Teachers must always have high expectation of students, because teachers who have high expectation of students always push students, and so that is important. Parents, and I'm sure parents are doing a lot. I've had the conversation about parents,
Indeed.
and I'm really, really happy. And
Yeah.
I think if all of us come together, particularly at the foundation level, we'll be able to fix the problem at the foundation level, so that by the time they get to senior high school, there will be students who will be, proficient already before they come to senior high school.
Mr. Kapi, I'm coming to you very briefly for like 30 seconds, but Prince Nanaya Ayok says, good evening, Beatrice. The man is telling the truth. Most students go to school and expect the teachers, headmasters to help them with answers. And when it turns out they couldn't get the support, they tend to attack the school, teachers, and headmasters. His outline solutions must be put to practice. Mr. Kapi, your final words, please, in 30 seconds.
So I think I support the PTA person in the studio there, because when you look at the issues of candidates having to contribute certain money to teachers to help them, they have specific amounts they pay for core papers and that which they pay for electives. Certainly, these are not people who are working, especially at the basic school. So if an appeal could be made to parents to ensure that, especially mobile phones, and then giving them money without knowing specifically what those monies are meant for, and then making them understand that there's a need for them to sit down and pay attention to their books, I'm sure that will help. Finally, I just want to say that, look, the teaching profession is a noble one. If we sacrifice teaching on the altar of finances, then we have lost it. We need to go back and look at the ethics of the profession and live by it. Thank you.
Indeed. Bwedi Kwame says, the problem of low performance in mathematics, the problem is GES. Why? The foundation of the subject is not well handled. In the basic school, most teachers who are class teachers, especially upper primary, either don't teach it or skip topics. And that's a long message he sent us. There's another one I want to read very briefly before I get the final word of Professor Bafo Agyemang, and that's from Robert Kobi-Labi. He says the results are what we are seeing as a result of, one, parents not playing their role in support of their wards or children, not repeating learners when need be, inability of the government to provide needed materials. And he lists about 9-10 points. Thank you so much for sending in, Prof. Please, your final words.
You know, I'm shocked by something tonight. My good brother here, who is an insider, teacher, heading the Parent Teachers Association, admitting publicly that in fact some parents and students attempt and succeed in influencing teachers to pass them. That's shocking. And this has been confirmed by a good friend from the...
Professor Fletcher?
Yes, and the other guy
WAEC,
from...
Mr.
Yes,
Kapi.
it's also confirmed. Just like he cited the lady who was... whose video was viral today, admitting. Yeah. So it means corruption that we talk about is not just the politicians, those up there.
Involved.
We are all corrupt.
Yes.
And if we are starting our educational process with corruption, then what do we expect our ministers and presidents to do if they go through the system? That really shocks me. I'm completely devastated by that. The second thing is that I think he made a very good point. You see, our government thinks they can fix everything by themselves. They have over-centralized everything that this nation needs to do. Parents have direct role. In fact, if you stay outside, you see how schools are managed.
If you could wrap up in 10 seconds, Prof.
So finally, all I'm saying is that
maybe.
we need to really go back to the basics. We need to go back to the basics and realize that, look, education is not one man's agenda. It's the totality of society. That's why in the olden days, you start from the home, from the church. Today, I can't talk much about the churches, whatever role they play in building character. And it all leads down to what somebody said about integrity in schools. Because if they were taught integrity, honesty, they won't go and cheat to pass examinations.
Thank you so much, Professor Bafo Agyemang, dear governance expert. Thank you for coming in and for sharing your thoughts with us on Agenda. Mr. John Kapi joining us by video call. Thank you as well, Deputy Director, Public Affairs, WAEC. Also to you, Professor Jonathan Fletcher, educationist and former Dean, University of Ghana. Thank you as well for joining us by video call and sharing those thoughts with us. And of course, last but not the least, in studio, Mr. Raphael Gapsin, Secretary, National PTA Council. Thank you as well for joining in and sharing those passionate thoughts with us. My name is Beatrice Adu. Thank you very much for joining us on Agenda tonight. Join us again next week. Have a good evening.